Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
I've really viewed every play and every game as, it's kind of its own entity. I mean, football is a game of momentum, but I really think that maybe that's more within games, than game to game. You just have to, keep going over your details. I mean, we would walk through our 2-minute in such detail all August, and I think, some of that detailed work is really paying off now too. So, putting in the time, putting in the preparation, I think, can oftentimes show itself in those moments.
Nice suit game there.
Yeah.
From Kirky McClutcherton, the fourth quarter Pharaoh yesterday.
You like that?
I'm envious
you like that?
Suit game. Yeah, it looks good. Do you like that? Yeah, I do like that.
You like how that suit
game.
tastes?
He gets them tailored, right? He's got to get a tailored suit, you think?
No, I think he probably just goes to Nordstrom's. Just
let's say. Never mind.
Pulls one off the rack.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
He might get it tailored at Nordstrom's, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I do that. I'm a short guy. I need to go get my pants.
I'm a skinny guy.
Off.
I need it to be thinned up too. I completely understand the game.
I'm dropping weight, so I don't care about you guys.
Okay. Sick brag.
Oh my gosh. We have Bears vent line in tow today too. If the Vikings winning yesterday wasn't enough joy for you, how about tap dancing on the grave of an NFC North opponent? But should we just get right into it here? Vikings statements from a game that was played yesterday. I'll start us off here, boys.
All right.
Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. And here's the first statement. Kirk Cousins has probably saved Mike Zimmer's job 2 weeks in a row now. So somehow, some way, the Vikings found themselves trailing in the second half again against an inferior opponent, at least offensively, because Mike Zimmer loves to play for field goals inside the 5-yard line and never inspires his team to just throttle down on a weak opponent. And so in comes Mr. Game-winning drive to save the day. In comes the late-game luminary himself. Kirk Cousins sets the Vikings up at the end of regulation, does his job, only to be burned, just like he was in Arizona, by a missed kick. And so he says, all right, enough of this kicker crap. I'm taking matters into my own magical late-game luminary hands. And he throws a dart to KJ Osborne for the win. And so Kirk Cousins, hats off for how great he's played late in games this season. And I think if the Vikings lose to the Lions, by the way, shooter Charlie Walters basically floated that in the Pioneer Press, that if the Vikings would have lost to the Lions, there's a good chance Mike Zimmer would have been fired.
He said he's week to week.
And if that's the case,
could be fired at any moment.
And he's not just making that up. I'm sure somebody in the organization floated that to him. So if that's the case, if Mike Zimmer's week to week, then Kirk Cousins has saved Mike Zimmer's job 2 weeks in a row. That's my first statement.
My first statement is this. So the bye week is here. There's time to take a deep breath. 3-3. It's not as good as we think it should have been, but it's certainly, after an 0-2 start, better than it could have been. And my statement is...
Okay, Toby Keith. All right, calm down.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see how this team does in the 4-game gauntlet that is going to come out of the bye against Dallas at home, Baltimore on the road, Chargers on the road, and then the Green Bay Packers at home. That 4-game stretch is going to tell us everything that we possibly need to know about Zimmer, about Kirk Cousins, about everything that this team is potentially about, as far as, is this a playoff team? Is this an ascending team that could get to the playoffs and make a run? Is this a team that, deserved the fact that it started 0-2? I can't wait for this stretch because it's going to define the season, and it's going to give us, there's going to be no more, that was Detroit, so I'm not quite sure. Or, Carolina's got a good defense, but man, that offense is awful. We are going to know exactly what the price of poker when it comes to the Vikings is coming out of the bye and the 4 immediate games that is going to tell us what this team is.
It is, like, to your point, it's really hard to know how to feel about this team after 6 games because, you look at the roster and they have a legit third wide receiver now in KJ Osborne, right? Like we were unsure about that going into the season. Their defense has stepped up big time in the last 3.5 games. But then you look and it's like, all right, well, they've played Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, I don't think is very good. So those are your 3 most dominating defensive performances. 2 of them were at home. And then you're in these close games and your quarterback has to bail you out and you might have kicking problems. Like, people say, well, they could be 5-1. If this, and this happened, then they could be 5-1. And I say, yeah, but they could also be 1-5 with losses to the Panthers and the Lions. So I think if they could be 5-1 and they could be 1-5, then they probably should be 3-3, which is exactly what they are. Now they have 2 weeks to do some more self-scouting, which is what they did going into
take a long look at yourself.
And that gauntlet of opponents in Dallas, my God, like I feel like Dallas and Minnesota are both in a similar boat in that, like, Dallas seems like they're further along, but you've got 2 head coaches that are like kind of 10, 15 years ago mindset head coaches that have no concept of like strategic game management or like when to go for it on 4th down. You got these great rosters that are being held back by these dinosaur head coaches. And both teams have a bye here and 2 weeks to rest up. So I'm with you. I don't really know what to make of this team.
But you know the crucial difference between the Dallas Cowboys and the Vikings? The Cowboys have a coach who was very successful a few years back, but he's still a coach who cares the most about his quarterback. The defense is outsourced there. And so that's the one difference is this. Dak Prescott has the coach constantly by him to communicate, which is important. The Vikings, maybe not so much. So that's one key strategic difference in why it's really important to have a head coach who never outsources offense and, most importantly, the quarterback position.
All right, Declan.
All right, my first statement. It is Kirk Cousins has evolved, and the rest of the team needs to do the same. If the Vikings are going to do anything this season, it's obvious it's through their offense. Like, their defense has played better, and there's components of their defense that look really strong. The defensive line's been awesome this season, but their defense will not carry them. It just won't carry them if they're going to make a run in the playoffs. Kirk Cousins right now is playing on a new level this season. You see it with his 4th quarter comebacks. You've seen it with the game-winning drives, and there just seems to be a different mantra about him. He looks pissed all the time now. Like, usually he's more of a happy-go-lucky, and I'm not trying to say he didn't have fire before, but there seems to be a new level of swagger to him, and I love to see it. And I think when you look at what Kirk has done, especially in the clutch situations, and I know Mackey sometimes likes to get all of his 4th quarter pharaoh and the late game luminary and all that stuff, and Kirk deserves credit for that. But Kirk, in my opinion, Judd, has taken that next step, and I really want to see what the Vikings can do leaning into their offense. Mike Zimmer, he still punts on 4th and short. He still has way too much trust in his defense. If the Vikings want to make a run, Kirk Cousins has taken that next step. I want to see if the Vikings around him can lift themselves up and take that next step with him.
And I don't know that he's pissed as much as now, confident. Like, the thing with Kirk is how many times, since he arrived here in 2018, have we seen a late drive, right? And like, Kirk looks sort of, I don't know, like, yeah, okay, cool, I hope it works. And then it doesn't. The guy these past 2 weeks, and you know what? The one thing is, Carolina's not good, but their defense is. Like, that is a statistically stout defense. And for Kirk to come out there and be as certain as Kirk was, the KJ Osborne pass, I think it was the one he caught before the touchdown. I think it was a 3rd down, where the first read was like Thielen and Jefferson, but then Osborne basically crossed Kirk's face, and Kirk made that throw, and it wasn't a perfect throw, but it was a good enough throw, and KJ Osborne made that catch. This is a different Kirk, I think, mentally, because we've always had the stretches where, like, Kirk's dauber is down, and then Kirk gets mad, which is why Kirktober takes place, right? Like, Kirktober is, oh my God, now Kirk is playing well. Here's the one thing I would not sell short with Kirk, because I think it's such a mental game with him. I would not sell short that I think that the whole vaccine controversy actually has emboldened him from the get-go to say, I will show you. Kirk needs that. And when Kirk has that fire starts, it's a lot more fun. And I love the fact that he now gets the ball these last 2 weeks and is like, screw it. Let's go, go, go. Not, check down. Oh, no. Should we run? Timeout. What should we do? That's not the Kirk that we're seeing now, and that's a huge improvement. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I'll give you a bonus Kirk statement here off of this, and that because of course, like, the last couple of weeks when he's played well down the stretch, and he played well throughout most of the game for sure this week. You owe an apology to Kirk Cousins for all of your criticism, right? I hear that from a lot of people.
I'd like to hear one from you, actually, yes.
Well, when new information is presented, and listen to me. Like when leading up to this season, okay, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last 4 or 5 minutes of a game when trailing. Like when your team needs you, it's comeback time. Here's the ball, 3 minutes left, go, go, go. He was 46th in passer rating, below a bunch of like backups who got demoted. This is since he joined the Vikings. He was 45th in yards per attempt and 56% completions, which was also bad, like outside the top 30. This year, I don't have all the rankings, but like this year, he's been the best in some of those situations, at least with the eye test. Like he has been incredible against Cincinnati, against the Cardinals the last couple of weeks. And so, you need to apologize. No, like he's elevated himself in those situations. He's a different guy in those situations, which is what we've been calling for. And so new information is presented. He deserves to be praised. Now they're 3-3 and they have a ton of games left. And so you have to keep doing this. Like October isn't the end of the season, but he deserves to be praised for stepping up in these situations that he has struggled in his career.
Amen. And as Patrick says, we don't control the narrative of the team or players. They do. So like if Cousins succeeds, awesome. It's fun to watch. Yeah. We'll praise him. If he doesn't, what we don't go is excuse hunting, right? Oh man, I mean that's not his fault. No, you're paid really well. So yes, exactly. All right. Here's my next one. The Viking self-scout that they did a week early appears to have told them to throw in the ball more and take some deep shots. Oh my gosh. I've got my cell phone right here. Clint, Mike, you could have called me. I could have saved you the self-scout angst. We all could have gone for a surly furious and had a couple beers, and I could have said, you know what? You really should throw more. And to Declan's point, I don't think it's just leaning into Kirk. I think coming back from the bye, you lean into the whole offensive experience. Because I think what they are realizing a little bit now, excuse me as my notes just covered my camera. I think what they're realizing right now, it's gone. I took it away.
No one kills more trees in PR departments than Judd.
It's my notes. You know what? Because I'm an old guy. I like notes.
Old man trying to figure out how to be on YouTube here.
I like. Yeah. Well, the camera's low, and I forget that, especially when I come into the studio sometimes. But the Vikings right now have, for the first time with Kirk here for sure, a third receiver option that's fantastic. Not just good, fantastic. So if you look at this offense as a whole now, lean into the entire experience. Jefferson, Thielen, Osborne, Conklin's not great, but he's not bad. He can certainly catch balls, right? Like you have Cook. You have all of these weapons now. Lean into them all. And Kirk, to his credit, is doing a marvelous job of orchestrating things from the primary position.
How about this? So the Vikings came in. They came into the game with, like, I want to say they were like 20th in deep passing attempts here. In fact, I'm going to get this real quick here. So coming into this week, actually, this number is going to include everything this week too. So they are now 17th in deep passes. So here's the number. They came into the game with 15 deep pass attempts on the season through 5 games. Wow. So they're averaging like 3 a game. And by deep passes, I'm not talking about Hail Marys here, right? I'm talking about 20 yards in the air or more, which is not that much to ask for. It's just, hey, take a shot once in a while with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. So they came into the game with 15 deep pass attempts that traveled 20 yards or more in the air. Yesterday, 8. So yesterday they had essentially more than double their current season total going into the week. They were 4 for 8 on those throws for 108 yards, 14 yards per attempt, and the KJ Osborne one was the touchdown that won the game for you. So if that's not a lesson, and by the way, that's against one of the best pass rushing defenses in the NFL on the road. and it wasn't a train wreck. The offensive line, sometimes they didn't hold up, but you don't need a perfect offensive line to take some shots down the field when you've got those 3 wide receivers. And so that should be a great blueprint for how to proceed throughout the rest of the season. We're not asking to throw, a deep pass on everyone, but 8 of them throughout the course of a game, that's great aggressiveness. I love it.
And a deep pass that does not hit sends a message still. Like, you can't say, well, we tried to throw deep to Jefferson and it didn't work, so bleep that. No, that actually puts defenses on their heels more. And so anything that you do that implies that you're going to attempt to have your Pro Bowl QB right now drive the ball down the field is a good idea. So the 4 that hit, that's fantastic. The 4 that didn't sent a message.
Yeah. Amen.
Keep doing it.
And we're back to Declan here, I think.
Yep, my second statement. Piggybacking off Mackey's first one, but to a different degree to a little bit. My statement is somebody gets fired if the Vikings had lost that game. Lost that game, obviously, to the Panthers. Look at the evidence if you're Mike Zimmer. You almost lost to Dan Campbell and Matt Rule. Dan Campbell and Matt Rule almost stole a game from you. Jared Goff and Sam Darnold are putrid quarterbacks, and your defenses collapsed in inopportune moments. 4th and 10 at their own deep in their own territory, and you give up a big play. I'm sorry. How does that happen? Jared Goff walks back down and daggers you, and then Dan Campbell has the stones to go for 2 and nearly gets you fired right there. Mike Zimmer had a case to be fired there. Clint Kubiak was asked to self-scout going into the game this week after 5 games because his offense was too predictable. There's too many talented players for them to be that predictable on offense, and you're looking at your OC saying you guys got to go back to the drawing board. It's not even the bye week yet, and you have to self-scout? Rick Spielman drafts 11 players in the draft, and none of them are playing? The most draftees you had in the NFL draft, and you are playing your rookies the least. We can make a case of who was the most likely to get fired of those 3, Zimmer and Kubiak and Spielman, and obviously Zimmer's the most likely one of those 3 to be canned if that were to happen at the bye week. But I'm saying if you lose to the Panthers on Sunday, somebody is fired today, and we're not talking about Victory Monday. We're talking about someone who got canned.
Since we're piggybacking here, that's a great little preamble into my next statement. So I'll just respond to your statement with a statement of my own here on Statement Monday. Mike Zimmer is holding a good, maybe even really good roster back this season from being better. They're involved in these knife fights against the Lions at home. And this Carolina team yesterday, that was one of the most embarrassing offensive performances that I can remember in the last 15 or 20 years watching the NFL. And you might say, well, yeah, but the Vikings defense had something to do with that. Yeah, the Vikings defense was good yesterday, but Carolina dropped 8 passes officially, according to Pro Football Focus.
That's all?
They had 8 dropped passes.
Yeah. Go back and watch that again. I got 10 to 11.
Well, there's probably 2 or 3 that are
poorly thrown by Darnold.
Yeah, maybe they were a little bit behind Robbie Anderson or something.
That was a gong show.
But 8 official drops is a gong show. And you're right, Judd. There's probably 2 or 3 other ones you could mix in there, too. They turned the ball over 3 times. They completed 40% of their passes as a team in 2021 NFL. This is a home game. And at one point in the second half, they were averaging 3 yards per play offensively. And yet, here the Vikings are in a knife fight, somehow not up by 21 points in this game because Mike Zimmer loves to settle for field goals inside the 5-yard line. 2 of them yesterday. And coming into the game, the Vikings were, bottom half of the league in deep pass attempts because Mike Zimmer everything has to gravitate toward close and tight and conservative. And it all sort of culminated with the all-time scared coaching sequence by Zimmer. Vikings up 8, 2:30 left. They're facing a 3rd and 8 from fringe field goal range, and they have a chance the next couple of plays to just end the game. And so they hand off on 3rd and 8 instead of trusting their $35 million white-hot quarterback, and they lose whatever it was, 3 or 4 yards. And now on 4th down, you could just attempt a 54-yard field goal and end the game. Maybe there's a 30 or 40% chance he makes that field goal. And Mike Zimmer thinks, yeah, but there's a 70% chance he misses it. So therefore, we need to punt because I trust my defense. Well, if you really trust your defense, kick the field goal and end the game. And if he misses, good news. You trust your defense to stop them from going 60 yards and converting a 2-point conversion. So it's why is this team putting up 371 yards on offense, the Vikings? Why are they so explosive down the field at times in this game and still like trailing in the second half. It's because of situational conservative play calling and Mike Zimmer's just general propensity to coach as close as possible. Let's keep it close, right? No risks. And it drives me nuts. He's holding this team back.
All right. My next statement is pure positivity. No questioning of things, nothing like that. The Vikings have found a left tackle. Christain Darrisaw. I don't think I noticed him once. I'm not saying he did not get beat, because he definitely did at times. But he didn't get beat much. And you know what? Rashad Hill, God bless him again, career backup, when he's asked to play left tackle, does not look the part. Like, it's like, oh my God. Christain Darrisaw looks the part. He is a left tackle. He is a first-round pick. Yesterday, hopefully for the Vikings' sake, started a long run of this young man starting at one of the most important positions on offense, holding it down, us not talking about that being a potential weak link now. Christain Darrisaw, to me, that was a huge first step in actually, it's been addressed. You used a first-round pick. He looked the part. I think he'll be absolutely fine now. It is so important that it appears the Vikings have found a left tackle who hopefully they can plug in for 8 to 10 years, and we don't go through a Matt Khalil. We don't go through controversies. He's just a solid left tackle, and whoever the quarterback is, if it's Kirk or somebody else in the coming seasons, you have what would be expected to be the blindside protector on the offensive line, and we don't have to be concerned. And last thing, most importantly, too, for the next 5 years, relatively cheap, so there's not a salary cap problem with an incredibly important spot, Christain Darrisaw.
By the way, 53 dropbacks yesterday. Christain Darrisaw allowed 1 pressure. On the season, he has allowed 1 pressure on 69 dropbacks. So he hasn't been perfect. There's been some times where maybe he's gotten beat, but it didn't result in a pressure. But big upgrade over the first 4 weeks of Rashad Hill.
In fact, if I could, because the one that he got beat on, I know it. And I want to broach this quickly with a follow-up statement. Kirk Cousins' development as a quarterback was seen on the play that Darrisaw got beat on, because the play that he got beat on was the fourth quarter play, 2nd and 6, Vikings at their 29. It's late in the game. It's the drive that ended, unfortunately, with the Greg Joseph miss. But Kirk Cousins, the guy that beat Darrisaw, tried to strip Kirk. And the last 2 years, I contend, Kirk fumbles, all hell breaks loose, Carolina recovers, they kick a field goal, game done, you lose. Kirk Cousins not only kept the ball, he avoided the sack and gained 16 yards. And so if people are like, well, I mean, how is Cousins different? Because that's good. The Kirk stands are actually going to say, he's always done this. You guys just didn't appreciate it.
No, he hasn't.
No, that play. But I mean, that's the play we've talked about, Phil, for years. It's the Brady play, the Rodgers play. It doesn't mean that you're the most athletic player on the field. It means that you feel pressure, protect the football, and escape. Mm-hmm. Kirk Cousins got 16 yards. That is a play that Kirk Cousins flat out fumbles on in 2018 or 19. And this time he didn't. He ran for 16 yards. He got a first down. That's huge.
Yeah, and you know what? It helps when it comes to risk management when you've got a great left tackle. And that's what Federated Insurance can be for your business if you're a business owner.
Great transition.
That's right. Yes, thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Federated Insurance is all about managing risk, protecting your employees, protecting your bottom line as a business. And you can find out more about all the great resources they have at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. Before we get to our friend Randy in Cottage Grove, who I'm sure has some takes on what happened yesterday, there's not many things more hilarious than angry NFC North fans. Let's turn to Bears Vent Line, courtesy of our friends on The Score and ESPN 1000 in Chicago.
Set, go.
Man, win with class, dude. If you're a Hall of Fame quarterback and you're beating up the Bears, you've done it your whole life, talk to me after you win the Super Bowl. Don't tell me about your miserable failures every year in the NFC Championship. It doesn't matter. Next year he's gone anyways. He's like that. He's a selfish dude. He may own us, but he disowned his family. That's what I think about that.
Okay. That's awesome. But that guy is completely hammered, and his kids in the background.
Yeah,
who's watching? I hope mom's there.
God.
Dude, it's like so Aaron turned to a group of Bears fans after scoring a touchdown and just said, "I've bleeping owned you my whole life. I still own you."
I love it.
In his defense, he was being flipped off. So he was getting the double bird. He saw it and did that, which, by the way, is awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from more
here.
Bears fans.
We got Aaron here.
Matt Nagy's got to go, man. Matt Nagy is not an NFL head coach. I mean, his game plan gets schemed out so bad by the defense. You know, they got off on the first 15 plays the last few games. You know, they scored a touchdown, but then it's like 3 quarters of misery. I mean, you're just watching this guy he doesn't know what to do.
Okay, so I'm not going to stand up here and defend Matt Nagy because I don't think he's a great NFL head coach, but I would love to see, was that Aaron in Berwyn, Declan, that we just played?
Correct.
I'd love to see Aaron in Berwyn, like in a room, a football debate with Matt Nagy, just explaining like, okay, how is it that Matt Nagy's scheme gets out-schemed by opposing defenses? Please explain, Aaron in Berwyn. Oh, man. How about Dan and DeKalb? Oh, we already played Dan and DeKalb. What about Steve?
Yeah, Steve.
The writing's on the wall. You know, Matt Nagy has to be gone at the end of the year, even if the Bears go to the playoffs miraculously. But I think after today's game, I think this is who the Bears are, a mediocre team, can beat mediocre teams, but just doesn't have enough horses to compete offensively against Green Bay and next week against Tampa Bay.
The Bears.
The Bears.
Even if the Bears.
The Bears.
That's hilarious. Yes, Bears vent line here. A Vikings win and a devastating Bears loss, all in one, although the Packers won. So, all right, we'll get bonus statements. We got more to say about that and also other things that happened around Minnesota sports. But let's get to our guy, Randy in Cottage Grove here on Mackey and Judd.